Hi, this is Digital Femme and welcome to my channel. So in this video, I wanted to talk about the process of making a decision. I'm mostly talking about big decisions that can affect your life. And if you want to hear about what I have to say, then continue watching. Hi, well, I'm glad you stayed. So the reason why I wanted to bring up the topic of the process of making a decision was because it had happened to me. A few years ago, I knew that I wanted to go back to my hometown, which was in Toronto. And I felt like the city that I was living in currently, I had overstayed. And what I mean by that is I really shouldn't have stayed here in this city this long, like 8 years, or at that time, 5 or 6 years. And I always knew that I was going to go back to Toronto anyway. So even though the move has always been at the back of my mind, a few years back, something had happened that made me want to really leave the city that I'm currently staying in and just move to Toronto. And that thing was the relationship I was in with somebody. I felt that, the relationship wasn't really going anywhere. I also felt that it had run its course. And I also realized that the person that I was with, we weren't necessarily good for each other, only up to a certain point. Well, in other words, it was time to move on. Now, there wasn't really a commitment we made to each other than we would stay monogamous, we would stay loyal, we would communicate, and all that stuff that's needed in a relationship. In terms of a commitment, like, oh, are we going to be there together forever? No, there was nothing like that, and there was no talk of marriage. So, given those facts, it was just easy for me to realize that I no longer needed to be in the city, which was the city he grew up in. Hence, this is why I was here. And it made perfect sense for me to go back home to Toronto. Now, I had already been living in the city. You know what? I'm going to say what the city is. I'm trying to avoid everybody finding out where I actually live. But you know what? I live in Saskatoon. I live in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Okay? So Saskatoon, Saskatoon is definitely a smaller city than Toronto. It is not like Toronto at all. And for all those reasons, I felt that this city wasn't like a place that I would live and thrive. Now, a few years ago, when I had realized or come to terms with the fact that the relationship I was in wasn't really going anywhere, it just really made more sense to go back to Toronto. I think I'm repeating myself. And as the years continued, like 2 years went by, then 1 year, and then just recently this year, like the beginning of 2020, I really made it a point that this was it. I'm going to save my money. I started to look for places in Toronto so that I could move for the summer. Now, COVID hit. Prior to COVID coming, I also knew that, you know what? I was uncertain about something. Even though I knew I wanted to return back to Toronto, I couldn't forget that I had lived in Saskatoon for a number of years, and in some way, obviously, I had made it a home. Now, like any other home, I created a space for myself. I got an apartment. I furnished the apartment somewhat. I spent time making it my own. And that was one of the hardest things that was in my head, knowing that I had to move and yet leaving this space or place that had become my home, and especially leaving my plants. I know that I cannot take all my plants with me. I've been in this particular space for 3 years, and another space, like 2 years here, 4 years here, whatever. But I just knew that the plants that I had obtained and propagated, and now they have grown to considerable sizes, I knew I was going to miss that. The one thing I knew about the decision that I knew I wanted to go back to Toronto, there was that inkling of, was it the right decision? So what I needed for myself, I knew, was I needed time alone. I needed time alone to really think, to really be, to really see myself in this apartment, in the space that I created for myself, without any distractions at all, without any distractions from family or friends or coworkers reminding me that I had to move, and especially any distractions at all with the relationship I was previously in particular with that person. And in a way, this whole lockdown and the social distancing had kind of like obviously delayed my move to Toronto. And while I was waiting for things to open up, I spent time alone in this space, enjoying it. And here's something about living in the now. I knew I wanted to move back. I knew that that was going to be eventually the path I would take. But at the same time, during the lockdown, I spent more time just living within myself and within the moment and just doing what I needed to do. Number one, I work remotely. So I had to like show up, obviously, and continue working. And then when I wasn't, I made it a point to enjoy my alone time. So let's go back to the process of making a decision. I decided that I wanted to move back to Toronto. But I also knew that in order to honor that choice that I was going to make, I wanted to be 100% sure that that is exactly what was good for me. And the only way I would know that was to just honor me. And the way I honored myself was to make sure that that the place I was in currently, I was grateful for it, and that I was appreciative of where I was and of the space that I created. And without anticipating any type of move, without thinking of the future, but everything to do with feeling the now. So months have passed. We're already into mid-September. And honestly, whether or not the move back to Toronto is going to either happen in the next few months, next year, or in 2 weeks, all I know is I'm glad that I took the time to claim my aloneness and time for myself to just be. And all this while, these few months, while I was being in my own space, I realized that I don't have to move. I don't have to move because this marketing agency in Toronto that would like it if I was there, now nobody's really in the office. Everybody works remotely. And with everybody working remotely, everything is just working out fine. Like it works. Remote working works with this particular marketing agency. So whether or not I'm there or not, it's working. It's not just working for me, but it's working for the people that are living in Toronto, and they're also working remotely from their own homes. Now, in terms of Saskatoon, yes, Saskatoon is not Toronto at all. But you know what? I only pay $825 a month, and I live in the Central Business District. I live in downtown Saskatoon. I am less than 1 minute walk from a Starbucks, so should I so choose to have one. I'm 4 minutes walk from another Starbucks, which is in Midtown Mall, and 4 minutes walk from Sephora, the makeup place. And I actually am like, there's everything here in the downtown area. I'm 1 block away from City Hall, 1 block away from the public library, 2 blocks away from the Saskatchewan River, and on the Saskatchewan River, where the downtown Saskatoon, like is fronts. There's the River Landing, there's Riversdale, there's Broadway, across the Broadway Bridge. And honestly, you know that if you've watched any of my other videos, I always make it a point, or I've made it a point to say that I always imagine I'm in Paris, because one day I do plan on living there. So I imagine it. And it's funny, but Saskatoon is actually called the Paris of the Prairies. And the reason why they're called the Paris of the Prairies is because the Saskatchewan River flows right in the middle of Saskatoon, which is like the, what's that river? Oh, I forgot what that river is called that, goes through Paris. And also, there's lots of bridges in Paris, and there's a lot of bridges in Saskatoon, like a lot. It's funny, but, I want to live in Paris. I'm in Paris of the Prairies. And to make a long story short, I really love Saskatoon. I mean, I don't want to admit it, and I didn't want to admit it, even though I was enjoying living here, enjoying the neighborhood, the downtown neighborhood, and the surrounding areas. I knew I wanted to move to Toronto. That was my decision. I thought I put a time limit to it. But then when COVID happened, and I got to ease into my own skin, my own place, my own, like the whole living into the now thing, then it's like I am home. And honestly, it doesn't matter where I am really, or it doesn't matter whether I'm in Toronto or in Saskatoon. The only thing I know is I'm happy with myself. I'm happy within the skin I'm in. I'm happy with the work I'm doing. I'm happy with the people I'm connected to. Now, sure, I have family in Toronto. I have all my family in Toronto. I have my friends, but I also have friends here. I have friends online. Like, I've lived in Houston, Texas. I lived in McAllen, Texas. I lived in Frankfurt, Germany. I visited other places in the US. I have friends everywhere, and I miss them equally. So thank goodness for the internet or video conferencing. And I know it's not the same as if you are like in the same room or in front of that person, but honestly, you can still emote your feelings through video. You can still express yourselves. The only thing you can't do is touch. And do I miss that? Do I miss being able to touch and hug my sister? Yes, absolutely. Do I miss hugging my friends? Do I miss, hugging my dad? I do. However, right now it is what it is. So let's summarize. What I mean to say is, for me anyway, and I would like to share this with you, it's one thing to make a decision. You can make a decision, but before you act on that decision, make sure you take time out for yourself, away from people, away from distractions, so you get to really decide whether the decision you made is the right one, and whether or not the decision you made, you can act on it. Like, what is the time frame for you to act on it? You know what I mean? In other words, if you're going to make a decision, make sure you make it from a stable place and not from a reaction to something. So what I was afraid of was me being in that relationship that I kind of like wanted to get away from. I really wanted to make sure that the reason why I decided to really move to Toronto, like almost ASAP, wasn't because I wanted to be away from this person. It was for all the right reasons. And now that this person is really no longer in my space, in my physical space, I just feel so much better about me in my space that I realized that part of that decision that I made to move to Toronto was really just to get away from that person. But now that they're no longer here in my physical space, There's nowhere I need to run away from or to leave, because I could feel comfortable right here without them being around. And once I made the decision to remove them from this equation, from this physical equation, then the dire need to move back home to Toronto no longer exists, because really, I am home. I'm home. Wherever I am, wherever I make a space, my plans are, wherever I am home. So, am I going to move back to Toronto? We'll see. It's not, there is not a no. There's nothing stopping me other than it's not a dire need anymore as it was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, or in the beginning of this year. So we'll see. And of course, I will update you on whether or not I will be making the move, or I will update you on a lot of things. Why? Because I'm doing the 1,000 day challenge. And that is choosing to do one thing for roughly 1 hour a day for 1,000 days. And what I've chosen to do is upload one video in this YouTube channel or to this YouTube channel for 1,000 days. You know what? This is like my 100th video, I believe. I think this is my 100th video. So I've got like 900 more to go. Anyway, if you like this video or if this video resonated with you, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Or you might want to consider subscribing to my channel, because there will be a video that will resonate with you. And hopefully it will motivate you, inspire you, or give you an aha moment. Anyway, thanks for watching. Wherever you are, have a great day, have a great evening, and remember, it's perfectly fine to make a decision, but will you act on that decision? And it's the acting part. Before you act on that decision, just make sure you're doing it for all the right reasons. And what are the right reasons? The right reasons are you. Okay, bye-bye.